This is James Lupton, delighted to be joined with Natasha Jonas. Natasha, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to go through a few rounds of topics with you, eight to be precise. So, round one, we're going to go to a different sport, football. Talk to me a little bit about your start in sport and football specifically.
Yeah, I think football's one of them things, especially in Scouse households. It's the cheap thing that you can do, and it was the first time I was ever allowed to go and play with my two older boy cousins that live with me. Let me out, and you just do what boys do, which is go round the corner in the park and play football. Became pretty good at it, and ended up on a scholarship in American university for it.
What was that like? We went out to America, far away from home on your own, but with this scholarship to chase a dream.
I think sport was my motivation to really do anything. I wasn't that great academically, or at least I thought I wasn't. But then when I needed it to get into the uni and get the score that I needed, I went and got the score. So, um, yeah, a sport brought out probably the stuff in me that probably school couldn't, and it brought out the best in me. It was, I was one of the first people in my family to go to university, and I wasn't really scared that I was going by myself, even though I am a home bird and I love being surrounded by my family. It was just the opportunity to do and be better. And at that time, you're talking, nearly 20 plus years ago, that was where you needed to be if you want to become a professional footballer and make a decent living out of it. Because at the time in England, there was only Arsenal and Fulham, I think, that was professional at the time.
Your football career was cut short due to injury. What was that like to go through at the time, but also now, at this stage in your career as a boxer? How did that help you prepare for injuries now?
I probably got more injuries playing football than I ever have in boxing, which is weird. But it was tough, and I probably now looking back and reflecting on that stage of my life, probably think I was a little bit depressed and I didn't recognize it at the time. I had all dreams, hopes, and everything in one basket and becoming this footballer that I've always wanted to be since I was a 4-year-old girl. And um, having that taken away, and that was my identity at the time I was Tash the footballer, and to have that taken away through no doing of my own, and something I couldn't really control was hard to take. And um, I think coming back into sport, it 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 gave me that drive again, but also I knew when I came to boxing, I knew what it took to be an athlete and to be like a good athlete, an elite athlete. Um, and I knew the sacrifices that it would make. Not many 18-year-old girls will just hop on a plane and go to New Jersey and hoping for the best. But I knew that I'm going to have to make sacrifices. I'm going to miss out on a lot. Um, I'm going to have to be driven. I'm going to have to be self-motivated and all these things. So I knew that when I got into boxing. So I think that helped me on that journey.
Did it help with any frustrations knowing you've been through something similar or potentially worse before?
I think it was always that you can bounce back from anything, the bounce back ability, as they call it. I think, um, and the lows, because I think um, just knowing that you can come back and it's not all over just because someone necessarily says it is. There's always opportunities to do and be and grow better. So I think I help with that.
Sticking with the football theme, and you've mentioned already as well family and how big family are to you. Your little sister, Nikita Paris, obviously made it as a professional footballer. Now, you're the big sister. She, I'm sure, looks up to you as an inspiration. But do you look up to Nikita as well as an inspiration to you?
Yeah, I think there's loads of stuff that we can just get on the phone and like talk, whether it's, you know, the business of sport or whether it's the psychology of sport or whether it's the physical side of sport. There's lots of intertwining things, that training techniques and stuff that we both do. I remember Man City had them training at a boxing club for a long time to, like, make them tough and just do a different type of training. And again, we both had the same like run coach for a little while. Um, different types of running, but it was the same coach. So there's lots of things that intertwine, but yeah, I just think I know how tough it is to be from our area and to grow up and to be that girl and all your other mates don't want to do what you do and to like stick out for all the good reasons, but not necessarily feeling like that at the time. And the fact that she stuck with it and she's, made a success of herself and everyone's proud of her, do you know what I mean? But that inspires me more than anything because it is tough around here to do that and to be that, and especially the pressures on young females at the moment. And you know, nobody really wants to stick out for any reason. But she stayed true to herself and she's reaping the rewards now.
Is it nice to know that you've got somebody there who can relate to you and the struggles that you go through at times being an athlete? But also, is it nice to know that you can be there for her as well in the same way?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's like I say, there's when I lost and stuff, she knows, and when I've been injured and stuff, and missing out on big competitions, whether or like she gives me that hug. That's the I'm your sister hug, but also I know what you're going through hug. You know what I mean? And I think I'm not saying it's just different from like anybody else because I don't think they can appreciate it. Like I know they don't fully understand. Do you know what I mean? But she does. So I think it's that.
So she can relate to it, like I say, as an athlete as well. Let's move on to round two, obviously boxing. What was the gap
The whole thing.
between when you finished football and started boxing?
It was like 2 years.
Yes. And what was it like to transition from a team sport to an individual?
I used to get like I loved football. Don't get me wrong. And if I could still play, I probably would have been still playing now. But um, what used to frustrate the life out of me is that I always give 100%. At least I think I always give 100%. And it used to annoy me that like, someone else would give 10%, someone would give 82, someone would give 50. And that I just couldn't get my head around turning up to the field and not giving your best. I just didn't resonate with me. So that used to frustrate me. And I have been known to kick off on a few of my own teammates for doing that. Um, but with boxing, people don't realize that even though it is an individual sport, especially in the amateur side and even in the pros in a gym situation, you're training as a team. Everyone drags each other through sessions, but ultimately it's just you in the ring and you only have to rely on you. And I think I preferred that switch, because I didn't have to rely on anybody else.
Does the individual side of it make it easier for you to deal with pressures of the sport because you know you've put in that 110% yourself?
Sometimes, yes, but on the like flip side of that, when it goes wrong or it goes bad or you don't get the result you want, it can be such a lonely place. And it feels like, you know, you just kind of left, especially as a pro. In the amateurs, you probably, within the next 2 weeks, you'll be at another tournament. So you can quickly like you have to shake it off in the amateurs and just get on with it. But in the pros, you've got a bit longer to dwell on, and like you can quickly go from the top to the bottom. Um, and yeah, it's like it feels like the end of the world. So I think yeah, it's good in that sense, but then it just feels lonely when results don't go right.
How do you deal with that loneliness? And you mentioned depression earlier after the football injury. How do you deal with those sort of things?
I always go away and learn about myself. Every camp I will, it's more like the psychology of stuff. I think your body can do anything it wants as long as your mind's with it. But even now, I'm nearly 20 years deep in boxing. I'm still learning about myself mentally, physically. I think the baby, and when I say the baby, I mean my little girl. I think she has, encompassed like I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. She puts everything into perspective. So, for a long time I used to dwell on stuff, but I can't do that with her because she doesn't want Miss GB. She just wants mum. She recognizes that, Miss GB is the boxer, and there's things that we have to sacrifice in the cupboards, and she knows that time, but then she also knows that, and I know that, like, as soon as the gym stuff's done, or the fight's over, I'm back to being mum, and that's what she needs. And I think that mental switch off helps.
Is that easy to flick between boxer and mum?
It, it I, in the I actually spoke about this with the sports psychologist, and it's getting harder in the sense of sometimes in the ring, Natasha has taken over, as in that caring nature side. And I remember shouting to the ref in a couple of fights, like, ref, you need to stop it, you need to stop it. And that's not Miss GB. So now maybe Natasha, the mum, is reflecting into Miss GB, which was never supposed to happen.
Does that worry you, just losing that spitefulness and that venom?
Um, it's something that we definitely work on to keep them separate. But I wouldn't say I'm worried about it. Because I still go out and perform. But it's definitely something, like an aspect of, the psychology of the sport that we're working on.
I want to talk about your early amateur career now, and I believe you won five ABA finals in a row from 2005 to 2010. What was that like to constantly be winning?
I mean, I tell you what, like, I won all. I've never been beaten domestically, um, like as an amateur, and I obviously won all the ABA titles and won the GBs twice and stuff. But then that first international tournament that I went to, I've won all these fights. I've stopped about three along the way as well. So we thought, oh, this boxing stuff's easy. And I went to that first international tournament and got my eye wiped because there was such a gulf in class between domestic and the international scene. So then, that's I had to develop even further, and I would have never known that hadn't I boxed international. That's why I think it's so important for young amateurs to be able to, enter things like the Haringey Cup and get them. If you can't make it to the GB or the England team or whatever, Scotland, Wales, wherever, that you get that international bout experience by going into cup tournaments.
Round three, GB boxing. I believe the first female Olympian for Team GB. What was that like to be making history?
You don't even think of it at the time. You're just there to do what you're doing. And I remember messaging all the, like, 2016 and 2020 lot and saying, like, make sure you enjoy the moment, because, and I remember someone said to me before as well, keep a diary, keep a video diary of, like, your days. And every day I used to get on and be like, yeah, it's this day, I've got three sessions, and I used to hate doing the diary. But now when I look back, there's one particular one where the day we got the results that, like, we was the people selected to go to the qualifier. And I look at that day and I remember, like, looking at that diary, I remember the emotions that I felt. But unfortunately at the time, I just wasn't very present. I was like, I wasn't necessarily worrying about things that had gone, but I was definitely anxious about things that were coming. Um, so now I just try and be in the moment, and I encourage others to do that as well, because no sooner it's here, it's gone, and it's just a distant memory. And um, I don't regret it, but I'm, I wish I'd have had more of it. I felt more present and experienced. I had experienced it a bit different than I did.
Would you say you're more present now when you're fighting?
100%, yeah. And because of that reason, I'm not, like, focused on what's been. I'm not looking forward to what's anxious about what's coming. I'm just I'm just there in that moment doing what I need to do. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Just put, yeah, hold on. Sorry, she's just eating the den.
That's all right. What's the difference between the emotions or the feelings you get, and even in the victories, with being present compared to when you wasn't beforehand?
It's just a different experience. You get to, get them hairs on your neck I remember like the biggest pro moment I think I've had. Well, there's two. There'll be someone with Mayor in Liverpool, but the first one I think was the Amir Khan. And obviously Amir Khan Kelbrook was a big night in itself. I was the chief support, and you know, I went out and I could feel the heat. I was sweating just standing on the thing. Then the all the lights obviously go off as you make your walk, and I can see everybody with the phones out, and I was enjoying experiencing that. That's like sometimes you just all of a sudden you're just at the ring and you don't really, and then quickly the fight's over, or you're already worried about who you've got next, and you know what I mean. You're already anticipating stuff, and you're not really there. But like how Joe said, like enjoy it, and I did, and that's I wish I'd have done that more in the Olympics.
Have you done that all the way through your pro career, or do you feel you started that quite recently? And if so, do you wish that you'd felt it more beforehand as a pro?
No, it's something that's not. It's not always been as part of my pro career, but yeah, it's definitely something that I do I make sure I do now. Um, yeah, I probably, yeah, I definitely do wish I'd done that earlier. But again, that was just part of something that I read that I incorporated into thingy. So that's part of me still learning about myself and my journey of finding out who I am.
Going to round four. Round four ties in your amateur and Olympic career and your pro career. And it's round four's a name, Katie Taylor. Um, a
The vein
fantastic,
of my life.
a great rivalry. Obviously, fought each other in the Olympics as amateurs and then obviously fought again in the pros. Firstly, just how good is Katie Taylor?
I think um I think what happened with Katie is that I remember I'll have to explain a story now. So I remember going in Liverpool, they had the European Championships. It was the male championships. And Price said, there's this kid, Lemachenko, you've got to watch him, you've got to watch him. And like they announced his name, and literally every athlete there, every ref and judge was there, every team member of every country was there, and everyone stood sat in silence just watching, and we were all like watching this Lomachenko. Um, and then I went to my own Europeans, and they said, you've got to watch Katie Taylor, you've got to watch. And it was the same. She had the same presence. As soon as Katie Taylor was on, everybody stopped and everybody came to watch. Like that's what everyone did. And for a very, very long time, she was so far ahead of everyone. Um, but I do think that, as with anything, she set the bar, and it was hard for her to keep pushing herself forward. But what happened was people caught up to her because she set the bar. So we had to be as good to even compete with her. So that raised everybody else's game.
With that reputation that she had as an amateur when you went and fought her, was you in awe of her? Do you feel you got caught up in that at all?
A little bit, yeah. Definitely. And it again, like you said, it's a presence. Sometimes you can be caught up in who she is. You go to Ireland and she's like a goddess there. But like I remember in the Olympics for like a whole day, the whole of Ireland hated me. Like literally, that's what I felt like. The whole of Ireland hated me. But then the next day after we'd fought, like they was back okay. And again, and as pro, like the whole of Ireland will just turn their backs because they're so loyal to this, the person that she is. And I think that's just Ireland as a country. They're very supportive of their sporting stars, and especially Katie and the boxers.
You was in awe of her as an amateur. Was you in awe of her as a pro, or had you got over that mental stumbling block?
I had got over it as a pro, but I still give it a little bit too much respect in the early rounds in our pro fight, and that's probably that in round 9 that cost me winning the fight. So yeah, I was over the whole in awe, but I still showed her too much respect in them rounds.
Despite of that, in terms of your performance against Katie Taylor in the pros, did you feel you knew where your level was and you felt that you was potentially on par with Katie?
Yeah, I felt I'd redeemed myself. I was just coming off a dubious draw with Terry Harper, which a fight I believe I won, and that kind of rejuvenated my career. And it seems mad to say, but I think people were, you know, supported the injustice in the result. Um, and yet if I'd have lost the Harper fight, there really was nowhere else for me to go. So I had to focus on winning that. And then, everyone was like, she needs another opportunity. That was a terrible decision. And I ended up getting the Katie fight because of that, probably.
Let's go back a little bit. So round five, I want to talk about defeat. Vivian Obernoff, your first pro defeat. As mentioned, the first time you lost as a professional, you felt the difference when you stepped up as an amateur at the international stage. What was it like to lose as a professional? Did you have that feeling of invincibility at all before that fight?
I wouldn't say invincibility. I've never been like careless. It's just it wasn't the defeat, like I say, and in the amateurs, I don't want to say you lose all the time, but you can lose and you get over it and you go again. But with the pro being the business that it is, your stock can be high, and I was on this collision course with Katie, and all of a sudden you drop to the bottom. And not only that, it was the manner of the defeat. I've never been stopped. So it was that hurt me pride and ego more than anything. It was the manner of the defeat, not necessarily the defeat.
How did you deal with the defeat?
I went away. My brother was getting married in Australia because essentially I thought that was the end of the pro, and you start believing what people say. People are like, "Oh, she's too old. She's not the boxer she was. She had a great amateur career. She hasn't really shown the same as a pro." And like for the first time, I started to believe what people said. And I was questioning myself. I was like, "Have I lost it? Like, you know, are they right? Am I too old? And am I just going to become a stepping stone?" And I went away and had like a whole month off. And when I came, like Joe messaged me and was like, Are you okay? Like, what's happening?" And I was like, "Joe, I just can't leave it like that. Like, I didn't want that to be the end of my 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 like boxing career. I didn't want to just leave it like that. There was something still like a burning desire inside me. Even if it was just one more fight and one more win, I weren't going to leave it like that because that wouldn't have sat well with me. I'm not. I'd lost, and obviously I hate to lose. I'm not scared of the losing. I'm not scared of doing something and failing. I'm I'm like I hate to sit here or in 10 years time and an opportunity presents itself and not take it, and then 10 years down the line I think, what would have happened if I took that? You know what I mean? And I hate the regret. And the same with the whole America thing. I'd hate to be sitting here now saying, what if I didn't get that score, and didn't try and I didn't go, and what would have happened? But I went and I'd done it and it never worked out. That's fine, but at least I said I can say that I did it.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something you mentioned there, and that was you started to believe the things that people were saying about you. In terms of this day and age with social media, a lot of trolls and people put a load of nonsense out online. It can be a very toxic place on social media. Do you think social media is a negative for all athletes in any sport?
No, definitely not. It's definitely a useful tool to have, when that's what the first thing brands or anything, PR or whatever will go to is look at your social media, see your interactions, how many followers you have and, all them insights and whatever, all that stuff. So it is an important thing because you are essentially your own business. So it is an important thing to have. But it's, a blessing and a curse at the same time because you can sit there, and I've done it loads of times, amateur and pro, and you go, "Oh, you were brilliant, you were brilliant, you were brilliant, great fight, boy, brilliant, 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 you were rubbish, you great fight, great fight." And you go, "Who said I was rubbish?" And you go back and you focus on that one thing that's negative. And this is something like I used to like respond, reply, and bite, and that's what they're waiting for. That's why they say it. That's why they do it. And it's something that I've had to learn to like just let go and like. just leave it. It's not worth it. Sometimes if factually it's not correct, then I'll correct them. But you know, I think for any young person, that feels like it's all about how you feel about it as well. I can now like confidently just scroll past a negative comment. It doesn't bother me. But if that's too much for you and you don't feel you can do it, it's okay to just switch it off. It's okay to take a break. People feel like they need to be on it and they need to get likes and they need to do that, especially young people. And you don't. It's okay. It's okay not to be liked as well. It's okay. Not everybody's gonna like you, which is another hard thing another hard pill to swallow sometimes. You can be the best person, be the best boxer, and someone will have something negative to say. So don't worry about it. It's okay.
Round six, excuse me. February the 19th, 2022. You heard the words and the new. Had your arm raised as a world champion at the AO Arena in Manchester against Chris Namus. What were those feelings and emotions like?
Relief. Like I said before, it was like last chance saloon. It was, the third different weight, the third different attempt at a world title. Um, and if it didn't win, there was no way I couldn't have gone any higher. I couldn't, go less than super feather. So it was literally that it was then or never. And when they said, obviously when it got stopped, I didn't actually realize the corner had threw in the towel. I thought the referee had stopped it. So it was only later on when I watched like the replays and stuff that was the corner that actually threw in the towel. But um yeah, I just felt relief and like I was like, ah. So it's just like, thank God for that.
You mentioned relief and you mentioned you went in and it was all or nothing, essentially. It was this and there was nowhere else really for you to go. Did you feel added pressure going into that fight? Was that the most pressure fight you've had?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was, yeah, like I said, for all them reasons and like I said, with the car and the moment, it was a huge event. It was a big card, 20,000 plus people in Manchester Arena. It was special. Um, but yeah, I was also glad it was over at the same time.
Let's go into round seven. Next fight, you won a WBC title in Liverpool. Fight after that, you win the ring title. Fight after that, you win the welterweight world championship. You're on an unbelievable run. And at one point before that fight in Manchester, you're thinking, this is it, all or nothing. If I don't win this, I'm done. And now all of a sudden you're on this winning streak and picking up titles left, right, centre. How does that feel to be doing that? Especially when people told you after your first defeat that you was too old.
It just goes to prove that you just don't listen to what they say. They'll say a lot of things. You don't have to listen to them. Um, it feels good. I'm not gonna lie, it feels great. I never envisioned that. In fact, that's a lie. I did envision that it could be that good. And Joe's been saying, so is this the last one? And is this the last one? Is this the last one? And every time I've reached the goal, I've achieved it. So, you know, the competitor and athlete in me was like, well, the bar wasn't actually set high enough. So we'll push the bar out a little bit more. You go to your next world title, it's like, okay, well, it mustn't have been set that high because I've done that. So I think I think life is about, making dreams come true and chasing things that people are saying impossible. People have been saying I can't do whatever since, or I can't be whoever since I was born, literally. So, I've made a career and a lifetime of proving people wrong. And, as long as I'm proving the right people right and the wrong people wrong, that suits me. But most of all, I'm proving to myself that, I don't have to listen to what people say. Just because people say I can be or do or become something, you know, doesn't mean I have to fit into what they believe I can do or can be or whatever. I choose them. I choose that for myself.
Talk to me about fighting and winning the WBC title in Liverpool, fighting in the Echo Arena, your hometown, even your last fight, Michaela Mayer, huge event, huge fight, and to do it in front of your your fans at home. What was that like? What's it like to fight at home?
I mean, Manchester's been good to me. I've won 3 world titles in Manchester, so I can't slag it too much. But I would like with everyone, there's no place like home. Ask the Liverpool football players, would they rather play in Old Trafford or would they rather play in Anfield? Of course, they're going to say at home. And it is like an extra motivation that whole fight week. Having a mural, and we probably did more PR for that fight than any other fight I've done before. And just the set and the other people that was on the card, the up and coming trainers like your Joe McNally's and your Stephen Smiths. It was just a big event for the whole city, and it was at a tough time, just after Christmas, and to have that support, I like we've always um we've always produced really good athletes from Liverpool, and they have always been, well recognized, well celebrated, and until that day that you walk out, you don't know if that's going to be the same for you, and it was. So, I respect everyone that came out and everyone that paid money to be there. Um, it was a special moment, and it was great to share the ring with Michaela Meyer as well. I think people appreciated that we were two elite, two of the best at the weight. Um, and I've recently been told that we actually got more viewing figures, higher viewing figures, I should say, than Bawati Aziz. So that's huge.
Absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Talk to me about the atmosphere. I've been to the arena a few times. I was at the Mayor fight, and the atmosphere in Liverpool seems to be, for me personally, one of the best I've been to around the country, and even been to Vegas. And something about Liverpool and the Echo Arena, when they're supporting their own, there's something about that atmosphere that I can't describe. What's it like for you to be there and the atmosphere's for you?
Yeah, it's hard to put in words. There's yeah, it's just mad, but it's that whole thing that you get addicted to. That's the addiction. Like, there's literally a moment before I walk out of my dressing room that if someone opened the back door and said, "Go on, you can run out now," I'd probably run. But when you stand there on that stage and everyone's going mad and it's all for you, that's the high that you're always chasing. When you get in the ring and throw that first shot, that's the high that you're chasing, and that's the high that's hard to replace when it goes.
How do you deal with the I mean, some fighters I've spoken to, they get a bit of somebody worded it as a fighter's crash. So after the camp's been done, after the fight, they get a bit of a low, say a week or two after fighting, after a victory. Do you get that? Do you feel a bit down in the dumps once you've had that high of fighting?
I wouldn't say I get down because I got my job as a mum to do, but I know what they mean because you're so finely tuned by the time you enter the ring that once you once that balance is gone, you go and you have that first rubbish meal. You eat that bit of chocolate and junk. You'd have that drink after the fight or whatever. Um, it can mess with your how because you're like I say, because you're so finely tuned, it messes with your mental, and then it comes out physically, and then all of a sudden, you go back to the gym thinking you can do the things that you did when you were just heading off to camp, and you realize you're actually maybe a stone heavier and you can't. So yeah, that's a bit of a kick in the teeth, but I wouldn't say I ever get down, but I know that people do.
I'll go to the final round now, round eight, and future for yourself. After the Michaela Mayer fight, you sort of hinted that this may be a last year in the ring. You've already started managing fighters. What is your future in the ring? Is it a plan for retirement this year for sure? Do you know how many more fights you want? What is the discussions currently with yourself and Joe and your team?
Um, take your opportunities as they come. I would love to. I made no secret of saying I'd love a Katie Taylor rematch. I would go down and wait again to do that. Um, yeah, I think Michaela Maya rematch also makes sense. Jessica McCaskill, obviously, it's just being announced today. She's fighting a lot of price, but the WBA is the only belt I haven't got, so that would be nice to pick that up. So they're obviously for boxer. there's certain fights that make sense for them. There's certain fights that Sky want on their platform, and then there's fights that fans want to see, and there's fights that I want. So yeah, you've got to come to a happy medium.
For yourself, obviously, you will know when it's time to call it a day in the ring. We mentioned earlier, Natasha Jonas is starting to sort of cross over with Miss GB, and bits and pieces like that may creep in. Do you feel once you start feeling more like Natasha Jonas than Miss GB that it's time to call it a day?
100%, yeah. I think I would like to think that the team I've got around me and the people I've got around me and the family that I've got around me that and myself that I will recognize when that time is. And obviously, yeah, the people around me will assure me that, and I'm not, I suppose sometimes with boxers, it's a scary leap to leave the sport that they've always done, always known. And that's the identity part, which is like me when I left football. But I'm not scared to. I know that I've got other avenues that I can go into, which is it probably makes the jump less scary.
Well, my next question was going to be, does retirement scare you? But you sort of covered that already. So let's go straight on to the management. Obviously, you've got Mikey Talon, you're managing. Um, is that the way you want to go down? You've done a bit of punditry as well with Sky and things like that. Is that where you're looking to sort of go down, sticking with the sport?
Yeah, I think, like I say, boxing's been such a big part of my life for a very long time, and to think that I could just walk away from it is ludicrous. It's a big void to fill. So I think I'll always be involved at some level. When I retired from the amateurs, I went to the Rotunda and I was doing some coaching then. With the amateurs, I think pros a bit different because I've worked with Joe and I see what he puts in. I don't think I could. I don't think I've got that in me. If I'm honest, so I don't think I'll ever become a pro coach. But the amateurs is, it's probably is more time, but it's a bit more structured in that sense. And it's a bit more fun. It's not you're not waiting for a wage or anything from it. You're just doing it because you want to see kids do well. So I think I'll definitely do a bit of amateur coaching. And also because it's just giving back as well. Um, yeah, probably get a good team that I can manage and guide their careers. I do a lot of work with schools and community groups within the Liverpool area. Um, and I'm on like governmental like panels for women in sport and women in boxing. So and then obviously I do the punditry stuff as well with Sky. So I'm not frightened. I know that there's a lot of avenues that I can go into um when that day comes. So I think that yeah, it stops me being as scared to take the leap.
So what you're saying is we're not getting rid of you that easy.
No, not yet. Not just yet. Yeah. When yeah. Like I
Uh,
say, it's not the camps and stuff. It's not your body. Like obviously every camp's tough and all them. When we stand there and say, how was camp? And you say, oh, the best camp ever. Every fighter's lying. They've twinged this thing, they've pulled this thing. They've had a few cuts and bruises and whatever. So, the body's fine. Your mind has got to be 100% on it, and when it stops being 100% on it, that's the time.
I just want to touch on something you mentioned there about the coaching side of it. You'd rather coach amateurs rather than the pros because of your experiences and what you've seen Joe does. Like you said, you can't do that what Joe does. What is that? Is that the commitment? Is that the pressures? What is it that you feel you can't do that Joe does?
Yeah, it's the commitment that he gives, and and it sounds mad saying the sacrifices because we all sacrifice, but like I sacrifice for 10 weeks and then that's me done. And then, might have, I'm always in the gym, but like I am, I can chill for a little bit. Joe just goes on to the next one, onto the next one, onto the next one, onto the next one. And he does our sessions with us. So it's not like he never like, and some shows he's got four people on. One show he might have one or two, it's just never ending. And as soon as one camp's finished, he's into the next one and into the next one. So there's no downtime for him. And I don't know if I've got that mental space and definitely I haven't got that organization. Joe is very regimented in what he does. He's like everything's written down, every single camp. You can go back to any camp in any given time in any given week and say, right, this is what you did that time. These are, you know, the you know, times that you got. These are the weights that you were doing. I don't think I've got that in me. To go along to the amateur session where someone else has already done the work and put it on the board. All I might have to do is like, teach kid a stance or, take a kid on the pad. That's easy for me because I can work with that. But to actually structure something myself, I think I'd struggle.
Perfect. Well, Tasha, that brings us to the end of the interview. I want to thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you and going through your journey from start to finish.
No, nice one. Thanks for the 8 rounds. Best 8 rounds.
Fantastic.